It was supposed to be just an amazing time. Within 5 minutes, it was literally 2-3 days of nothing but great memories, and within 5 minutes, literally everything just turned upside down.
Indescribable grief now floods Luis Beltran and his closest friend's consciousness after the tragedy that would change the lives of 14 men forever.
I thought I was having a heart attack. I was lifeless. I couldn't move my head, I couldn't move my arms, I couldn't move my legs.
Every time my legs would hit rocks, I would try to kick up to grab air, and then you get swept in again. Bachelor.
What was supposed to be an idyllic destination bachelor party ahead of Beltran's upcoming wedding turned into a complete nightmare.
The raft literally folded.
Like in
Within
half?
minutes, it folded, and it just pulled us down from the suction of the water.
A trip to Costa Rica, one that included a much-anticipated rafting excursion, turned deadly after their rafts capsized, killing 4 of their friends: the groom's brother, Sergio Lorenzo, Jorge Caso, Ernesto Sierra, and Andreas Denis, who they call Andy.
I did lose a brother, but I lost 4 brothers, because all these guys...
You love them.
Costa Rica lures tourists to its beautiful shores with promises of adventures like ziplining and river rafting. It's a place over 1 million U.S. tourists visit annually, making up the majority of all visitors to Costa Rica.
Was this a freak accident, or was this something that could have been prevented?
It absolutely could have been prevented. I mean, they could have told us, hey, there's flood warnings.
We should have never been on that river. We just didn't know any better. We literally didn't know any better.
Their families are demanding answers and action, asking and pleading with Costa Rican authorities as to why the group was allowed to raft in such unsafe conditions.
If they would have told us that there was an alert, it would have been very simple. Hey guys, look, there's an alert here. Let's just go back.
You love me? I love you.
Yet on October 18th, when the men boarded their flight to Costa Rica, they say danger was the last thing on their minds.
Multiple times during the trip, several of us, including me, was like, you know, this is probably one of the best trips. It's been a little bit of a stressful year, so like this was like a big relief for me, especially to spend it with my friends.
It was the time of their lives. They were together on an adrenaline-fueled, fun-packed adventure.
We had such a good time on the ATV tour as a group. When we finished the tour and we all stopped and like finally sat down and took off our helmets, everybody was like, wow, what a rush.
Everything would change on that fateful last day of the trip. The group excited as ever as they arrived for a rafting excursion guided by a local company on the popular Naranjo River.
It was bright and sunny where we were staying, so we didn't think there was rain.
There was no sign.
I mean,
And we were looking forward to it.
That morning, Costa Rican authorities reported weather advisories and alerts, warnings the group says were never told to them by their tour guides.
When you go on vacation, you don't really think that something's gonna happen to you.
You lay your guard down.
Yeah, I mean,
You never think of anything like this happening, and neither did we.
They say they waited on shore for several minutes. The tour guides delayed the launch of the rafts due to water levels.
As we're suiting up, that we're kind of getting our stuff together, they told us that we were going to have to wait because the river, I guess the river was too high or something, but to wait it out because it might have dropped or it could drop within a couple of minutes. And
That's exactly what we did. We waited it out. They came back and they said, hey, we're ready to go. We said, okay, perfect.
From your takeoff point, you can't see, there's a section where you see that it was flat, but 2 minutes in is a big right bank, and then past that bank is when we saw ultimately what we're gonna go through.
And how many minutes were you inside the rafts before it took that turn and you all got into the water?
Probably about 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
And describe what happened next. 3-4 minutes in.
When I went in, it was just survival. Just try to get air, and then you get sucked in, and then for me at least, every time my legs would hit rocks, I would try to kick up to grab air, and then you get swept in again. It's just survival.
The current was so strong, it not only carried them downstream, it pulled them under.
It was just trying to grab a hold of a rock or anything that was near us.
all I remember is that once my brother was sitting behind me, so when we hit the water, we kind of went under together. And he was hanging on to my life vest, and I was kind of hanging on to him. And within the midst of everything, we just slipped from each other.
The men describe being swallowed up and spit out by the intense currents, blinded by the water. All of the men say the river's currents were strong enough to rip their clothes and shoes off and leave them breathless.
When I got to shore and I knew what I had just gone through, I was very worried. I knew that there's slim chance that all of us were going to be okay.
As they attempt to gather what little strength they have, the search begins to try and find each other.
I was with Andy for most of the time, and most of my energy was helping Andy. While I was in the water, he was on the raft while I was holding on to the raft. The raft flipped again. I never saw him again. I saw the authorities hold his chain in a bag, and they wanted to keep it as evidence. And I got up and I grabbed it from him, and I said, this is going to his soon-to-be his fiance. And he said, no, this is evidence. That's when obviously I got full confirmation when I saw his chain.
In all, 5 men lost their lives that day, including one of the rafting guides. Questions remain as to whether the rafting company was even accredited. The Costa Rican Health Ministry, responsible for issuing licenses to rafting companies, tells ABC they can't comment because it's an open investigation. For some members of the group, including Marco Caso, the most devastating part was yet to come, contacting the parents of those who were lost.
First of all, it was the worst day of my life. But the hardest thing I ever done in my life was calling both of my families.
Janet Denis lost the young man she raised as a son, Andreas, who they call Andy. She says the families are far from having any answers as to what went wrong.
To this day, I really don't have any answers. Little bits and pieces that you hear from the other boys, the injustice of no kind of safety measures.
While still grieving, the parents and survivors are adamant that new guidelines and rafting warnings be put in place for what has been a largely self-regulated industry.
I want for the other mothers to know what really is going on there, the risk that they take when they do this kind of tourism.
We want to get help from the U.S. State Department to help us the best possible way.
Just today, the State Department confirms a section on adventure tourism was added to their website in response to this incident, providing tips for any tourist considering a visit to Costa Rica. Just a month after the tragedy, the trauma is still very real.
Raise of hands, who has had trouble sleeping since this? Raise of hands if you've had flashbacks of being under the water or of trying to pull somebody from the water.
While fighting to erase the nightmare in their minds, they go between sorrow and joy as they remember the 4 who didn't survive.
We all lost a brother, a son, a friend,
a father,
a cousin, a father. So it's something you don't see every day.
Sergio, the oldest of the group and the brother of the groom.
He was just very humble, very quiet, very to himself. You never heard him complain.
Ernesto, a driven entrepreneur with big dreams.
He made those dreams happen.
He was something else.
Andy, described as everyone's best friend, was going to propose to his girlfriend after the trip.
He had already planned it to do it when we got back, and it just didn't happen.
And Jorge, at age 22, he was the baby brother of the group.
The amount of people he touched at his age is just amazing.
Closer now than ever before, the survivors wear the same shirt to honor their friends and cousins and brothers.
Ernesto, which was the F, and they integrated the other line, which was my other cousin. Andy, Sergio, and George. It was just the way we represented them, just living at that moment.
They hope to most represent them by doing something to help warn others from ever going through what they're going through.
I feel like if we can save one person through this entire tragedy, if one person is watching this and they decide, you know what, we're not going to book that trip, or we're going to do a little more research, if we save one life, then our friends didn't die in vain.
For Nightline, I'm Adrienne Bankert in Miami, Florida.
And now that wedding is postponed until next year. Our thoughts are with those affected by this heartbreaking story.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.